Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The barrel of the Glock 19 was pressed so hard against my temple that I could feel the cold steel sapping the heat from my skin, yet the bundle in my arms remained warm, impossibly heavy, and for the first time in 3 weeks, silent. "Give him to me," the man growled, his voice a low tremor that vibrated through the floorboards of the nursery. It wasn't a request. It was an order from a man who had never been denied anything in his life. I didn't move. I couldn't. My knees were locked, rooted to the plush carpet of the penthouse suite that smelled of antiseptic and dying orchids. "If I let go," I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of his oppressive, terrified pheromones, "he will scream again. And if he screams, his heart rate spikes. You saw the monitors. He can't take another episode." The man, Vane, the beast of Valerium, the alpha who held the city's criminal underworld in a chokehold, hesitated. His finger twitched near the trigger. His eyes, rimmed with the red exhaustion of a father watching his heir fade away, darted from my face to the sleeping infant against my chest. "Who are you?" Cashin hissed, the gun lowering an inch, though the threat remained. The finest doctors in the country couldn't settle him. Beta nurses, omega wet nurses. He rejected them all. "Why does he smell like you?" I looked down at the child, the tiny, fragile life that had gripped my finger with desperate strength only moments ago. "I'm nobody," I said, and it was the truth. "I'm just the janitor." To understand how I ended up at the barrel end of a crime lord's weapon, you have to understand the hierarchy of St. Jude's Medical Center. At the top were the prime alphas, the surgeons, and board members. At the bottom, beneath the beta administrators and the registered omega nurses, were the defects. That was me, Julian, a defect omega. I had no scent, no heat, no biological marker that registered to the nose of a normal alpha. I was a ghost in a world governed by biology. Because I lacked the pheromones to soothe or entice, I was relegated to the night shift sanitation crew, scrubbing floors in the VIP wing where the elite hid their sicknesses. I had been invisible for 24 years. Until tonight. The rumor had spread through the hospital like a virus. Vane's wife had died in childbirth a month ago. A tragic, bloody affair that left the city holding its breath. But the child, the heir to the Vane empire, was born with a condition known as sensory rejection syndrome. The infant, Silas, was allergic to the world. Every scent, every touch, every pheromone caused him physical agony. He had been screaming for weeks, slowly starving, his heart straining under the stress of constant panic. I was mopping the hallway outside the Platinum Suite when the alarms blared. Code blue. Cardiac distress. The guards had rushed in. The doctors followed. I heard the shouting, the panic, and over it all, the thin, ragged wail of a dying child. Then silence. Not the good kind. The heavy, suffocating silence of failure. The doctors filed out, heads bowed, terrified of the man left inside. They had given up. They were waiting for the child to expire. I shouldn't have gone in. It was suicide. But the door was ajar, and I saw him. Vane, slumped in a chair by the incubator, his head in his hands, his expensive suit rumpled, a titan brought to his knees by grief. The baby was gasping, turning blue in the glass box. I didn't think. I dropped my mop. I walked past the weeping father, reached into the incubator, and scooped the boy up. The moment my skin touched his, the thrashing stopped. It defied medical logic, but biology is rarely logical. Because I was a defect, because I had no scent, I was a blank canvas. To a baby overwhelmed by the sensory overload of powerful alphas and sweet omegas, I was the void. I was peace. Silas buried his face in my neck and took his first deep breath in weeks. That was when Cashin stood up. That was when the gun came out. "A janitor," Cashin repeated, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. He holstered the weapon, but the danger didn't dissipate. He moved closer, stalking me like a predator circling prey. He was taller than he looked on the news, broad-shouldered and imposing, radiating a scent of burnt cedar and ozone that usually made my knees weak with fear. But tonight, it just smelled like sorrow. "My son is sleeping," he said, sounding bewildered. He reached out, his large hand hovering over the baby's back, afraid to break the spell. He was overstimulated, I explained quietly, shifting my weight. My arms were aching, but I didn't dare let go. Your scent. It's too strong for him right now. He needs zero input. He needs nothing. And you are nothing, Cashin said. It wasn't an insult, it was a calculation. Yes. Put him down. I hesitated. If I put him in the crib, he might wake up. Then you aren't putting him in the crib, Cashin said, his eyes darkening. You're coming with us. Coming with. No. I stepped back, my heart hammering against my ribs. My shift ends in 10 minutes. I have a cat. I have a life. I just wanted to help. Cashin didn't laugh, but his lip curled in a dry, humorless smile. He pulled a phone from his pocket and tapped a single button. Prepare the car. And the extraction team. We're leaving St. Jude's. I have the cure. He looked at me, his eyes locking onto mine with a terrifying intensity. You have a life? Not anymore. As of this moment, you are the exclusive property of the Vane estate. You can't do that, I stammered, clutching Silas tighter as the baby stirred. Kidnapping is. I am Cashin Vane, he interrupted, closing the distance between us until I was pressed against the nursery wall. He leaned down, his breath hot against my ear. I can buy this hospital and burn it to the ground for kindling. Do you think I care about the law when my son is finally breathing? He pulled back, his expression hardening into stone. You have two choices, Julian. You walk out that door with me, holding my son, and you live in a luxury you cannot imagine. Or, I leave you here, I take the boy, he screams until his heart stops, and I return to kill every person who failed him. Including you. It was a monstrous ultimatum. It was the logic of a madman. But as I looked down at the sleeping baby, whose tiny hand was still clutching my uniform, I knew it wasn't really a choice at all. The Vane estate was a fortress of glass and steel perched on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, isolated from the smog and noise of the city. It was beautiful, cold, and utterly terrifying. For the first week, I was a prisoner in the nursery. I slept on a cot next to Silas's crib. I ate meals brought to me by silent guards who wouldn't look me in the eye. I was the pacifier, the human shield between the air and the world. Cashin was a ghost in his own home. He would stand in the doorway at 3 a.m., watching me rock his son. He never spoke, never thanked me. He just watched, his gaze heavy and assessing, searching for a flaw, a betrayal. The dynamic was suffocating. I was a defect, used to being ignored, but being studied by a prime alpha was a different kind of torture. One rainy Tuesday, the tension snapped. Silas had been colicky, fussy despite my presence. I had been walking the floor with him for 4 hours straight. My back was screaming, my legs shaking with exhaustion. Cashin entered the room, smelling of whiskey and rain. He had been out, doing whatever crime lords do, and the scent of violence clung to him. Give him to me, Cashin demanded, his voice slurring slightly. You're drunk, I snapped, sleep deprivation stripping away my filter. And you smell like gunpowder. You'll set him off. Cashin froze. No one spoke to him like that. He crossed the room in 2 strides, gripping my upper arm. His fingers dug into my flesh, bruising. I am his father. Do not presume to tell me what my son needs, you hollow little thing. The insult stung more than the grip. Hollow, that's what they call defects. Empty vessels. I'm not telling you as a servant, I hissed, pulling away, careful not to jostle the baby. I'm telling you as the only thing keeping him alive. Look at him. Cashin looked. Silas was awake, his wide, dark eyes fixed on his father. He wasn't crying. He was curious. He knows you're upset. I softened my voice, realizing the alpha wasn't angry. He was terrified. He was afraid his own son would reject him again. Sit down. Please. Cashin stared at me, warring between pride and desperation. Slowly, he sank onto the nursing chair. Take off the jacket, I instructed. It holds the scent of the city. And wash your hands. He obeyed. He stripped off the suit jacket, revealing the holster and the white dress shirt underneath. He scrubbed his hands in the ensuite sink. When he returned, he looked younger, stripped of his armor. Now, I said, moving closer. Don't take him. Just lean in. Let him smell you underneath the rest of it. Cashin leaned forward. I held Silas out, bridging the gap. The baby scrunched his nose. Cashin flinched, expecting the scream. But Silas didn't scream. He reached out a chubby hand and grabbed Cashin's finger. A sound tore out of Cashin's throat, a sob that he strangled before it could fully form. He pressed his forehead against my arm, hiding his face, his shoulders shaking. I thought I killed him, he whispered into my sleeve. I thought my blood was too poisoned to make anything good. My heart, traitorous and foolish, softened. I wasn't just holding the baby anymore. I was holding the father, too. I rested my chin on the top of Cashin's head, inhaling the scent of cedar. He's not poisoned, I whispered. He's just particular. That night, Cashin didn't leave the nursery. He slept on the rug beside the crib. And I slept in the chair, watching over both of them. The shift was subtle at first. The guard started calling me sir instead of you. The meals improved. The cot was replaced with a real bed. But the biggest change was Cashin. He stopped treating me like equipment. He started treating me like a puzzle. He would corner me in the kitchen while I was heating milk. Why are you a defect? He asked once, leaning against the marble counter, blocking my exit. Genetics, I muttered, focusing on the bottle. Bad luck. My parents were both betas. Something misfired. Is it true you can't feel the command? He asked, stepping closer. The alpha command was a voice frequenting used to force submission. I can hear it, I said, glancing up at him. It just doesn't make me want to kneel. Cashin's eyes darkened. He stepped into my personal space, trapping me against the counter. The heat radiating from him was intoxicating. Nothing makes you want to kneel, Julian? My breath hitched. It was the first time he had used my name without a sneer. I kneel when I choose to. Dangerous, he murmured, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. His thumb grazed my pulse point. A man who cannot be controlled is a liability. Then let me go. No. His answer was instant, possessive. Silas needs you. Just Silas. I challenged, emboldened by the strange electricity arcing between us. Cashin froze. His hand lingered on my neck, his thumb stroking the skin there. For a moment, I thought he would kiss me. The air was thick with it, the tension of enemies who had forgotten why they were fighting. You are arrogant for a janitor, he whispered, but there was no bite in it. Finish the milk. He walked away, but the scent of him, rich, dark, and wanting, lingered on my skin for hours. We fell into a rhythm, a domesticity that felt stolen. We were playing house in a fortress built on blood money. But reality has a way of crashing in. It happened 3 months after I arrived. The Black Serpents, a rival syndicate Cashin had decimated years ago, made their move. They didn't attack the warehouse or the docks. They attacked the home. The security alarms didn't wail, they were cut. The first sign of trouble was the shattering of glass in the foyer and the muffled thud of suppressed gunfire. I was in the nursery. Cashin was in his study down the hall. He burst into the room, a demon of war. He was covered in blood that wasn't his, a rifle in his hand. The panic room, he barked, grabbing my arm. Take Silas. Go. What about you? I cried, grabbing the baby. I have to buy you time. They breached the perimeter. He shoved me toward the hidden panel in the wall. Go, Julian. If they find you, they will use you to get to me. Do not open this door for anyone but me. I scrambled into the steel-lined room, the heavy door hissing shut, sealing me in darkness with the child. I sat there for hours. The sound of chaos outside was muffled, explosions, shouting, the terrifying roar of an alpha protecting his territory. Silas started to whimper. Shoo, I whispered, rocking him, tears streaming down my face. Daddy's coming. Daddy's strong. Then, silence. I waited. 1 hour. 2. I couldn't take it. If Cashin was bleeding out, if he was dying, I did the one thing I was told never to do. I opened the door. The hallway was a ruin. Drywall shattered, expensive art riddled with holes. Bodies of men in black tactical gear littered the floor. I found Cashin in the foyer. He was slumped against the grand staircase, his white shirt soaked red. He was alive, but barely. I told you. He coughed, blood bubbling past his lips, to stay inside. I dropped to my knees beside him, putting Silas down in his carrier safely before ripping my shirt to bind Cashin's wound. It was a gut shot. Bad. You're an idiot, I sobbed, pressing down on the wound. You're a stubborn, controlling idiot. Cashin groaned, his hand coming up to grip my wrist. His skin was burning. He was going into a feral state, the body's last-ditch effort to survive trauma. His eyes were glowing a bright, unnatural gold. Julian, he growled, his voice changing, becoming something primal. Run. I can't. I can't hold it back. I will hurt you. A feral alpha doesn't recognize friend from foe. They only know violence. No, I said, leaning over him. Run, he roared, baring his teeth. No, I shouted back. And then, I did something I didn't know I could do. I didn't have a scent. I was a defect. But as the fear and love, yes, God help me, love, surged through me, something inside my dormant biology snapped. A scent exploded from me. It wasn't soft or sweet like a traditional omega. It was sharp, like ozone before a storm, like the ocean crashing against rocks. It was powerful. Cashin's eyes widened. He inhaled, his nostrils flaring. Mine, he rasped. It wasn't just a claim. It was recognition. I wasn't a defect. I was a latent, an omega whose biology was so rare, so specific, it only unlocked in the presence of a true mate and extreme danger. I leaned down and pressed my lips to his. It was messy, tasting of blood and desperation. Cashin didn't hurt me. He didn't tear my throat out. He surged up, wrapping his arms around me, burying his face in my neck, inhaling the scent that had finally bloomed for him. His heart rate slowed. The feral light in his eyes dimmed, replaced by clarity. You stayed, he whispered against my skin, sounding awestruck. I had to, I replied, smoothing his hair back. The baby only comes for me. And apparently, so do you. The recovery was slow. The Vane Empire had to be rebuilt, enemies purged. But the dynamic in the penthouse had shifted irrevocably. I wasn't the prisoner anymore. I wasn't the janitor. I was sitting on the balcony, watching the sunset over the ocean. Silas was asleep in my lap. Cashin stepped out, moving stiffly but healing. He placed a hand on my shoulder, his touch possessive, heavy, and warm. The lawyers drafted the papers, he said quietly. What papers? Your release. A trust fund. A new identity. You can go anywhere, Julian. You saved my life. You saved my son. I can't keep you in a cage anymore. He held out a folder. It was my freedom. Everything I had said I wanted in the beginning. I looked at the folder. Then I looked at Cashin. The ruthless king of Valyrium looked at me with the vulnerability of a man waiting for a death sentence. I took the folder, and I dropped it over the railing. We watched the papers flutter down toward the crashing waves below, swallowed by the sea. You can't get rid of me that easily, I said, looking up at him. Silas is teething, and you still have nightmares. Cashin let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for months. He dropped to his knees in front of me, not in submission, but in devotion. He took my hand and pressed his lips to the inside of my wrist, right over my pulse. I will give you the world, Julian, he vowed. Every part of it. I don't need the world, I said, leaning down to kiss him, the alpha who had captured me and the man I had tamed. I just need you to come home at night. And that is how the defect became the anchor that held the beast steady. If you enjoyed seeing Julian take control of the most dangerous man in the city, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a kidnapper if he turned out to be your soulmate, or would you have taken the money and run? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,